The scorching patio stones tore the skin right off my palms. I hit the ground hard. My wheelchair clattered onto its side in the suffocating summer heat. The smell of burning charcoal mixed with the metallic taste of blood in my mouth. Cruel laughter erupted across the yard. My own sister stood over me, her face flushed with cheap wine and absolute rage. "Stop faking for attention." She screamed, her voice cutting through the barbecue like a siren. Blinding nerve pain pinned me to the stone. 60 relatives stood around us, holding their paper plates. Watching the show, a few even cheered. Then the heavy wooden side gate swung open. A man stepped onto the grass, holding his phone perfectly steady. The camera lens pointed squarely at my sister's furious face. He cleared his throat. The sound was sharp enough to cut glass. "That is my patient." He said, those 5 words ended my sister's entire life. But to understand how we got to the point where my own blood relative was shoving me onto concrete, you have to understand the currency of our family. The currency was not love. It was appearance. And it was money. I am 31 years old. I served 4 years in the Army National Guard before an accident shattered my lower spine. 12 titanium screws hold my vertebrae together. I live with neuropathic pain that feels like someone is driving roofing nails into my nerve endings while running an electrical current through my legs. My daily survival relies on a $2,200 monthly disability check and an $8,500 custom titanium brace just to keep my torso upright. I did not ask for this life. I survived it. My sister, Vanessa, was 34 years old and an emergency room nurse. She wore her scrubs to family dinners. She kept her hospital badge clipped to her collar long after her shift ended. She built her entire identity around being the successful, healthy, caring savior of the family. Her perfectly curated life was threatened by exactly one thing: my mother's guilt. After my injury, my mother, Catherine, watched me struggle to get into sedans and navigate stairs. In a rare moment of actual parenting, she quietly took out a $150,000 second mortgage on her fully paid off house to buy me a modified, wheelchair accessible van. When Vanessa found out about the second mortgage, a switch flipped inside her brain. She did not see a mother helping a disabled veteran daughter. She saw her future inheritance being stolen. Vanessa's rage was quiet at first. It started with whispered conversations in the kitchen. She would corner our relatives and plant the seed. "She's milking it," Vanessa would say, swirling her wine glass. "I work in a hospital. I know what real trauma looks like. Brooke is just lazy. She's addicted to the attention." My uncle Derek, a pompous man who leased luxury cars he could barely afford, ate it up. Soon, the whispers became jokes. The jokes became exclusions. I watched my family replace empathy with suspicion. By the time the August family barbecue rolled around, I knew I was walking into an ambush. The hostility in the air was thicker than the Ohio humidity. I tried to keep a low profile, parking my chair near the edge of the patio, but Vanessa had been drinking since noon, and she needed an audience. She marched across the grass, flanked by Uncle Derek. She demanded I stand up and help carry coolers. I told her the neuropathic pain was flaring up and my brace was locked. That was all it took. She grabbed the handles of my wheelchair and yanked forward. The momentum launched me onto the concrete. The impact sent a shockwave of white-hot agony up my spine. My vision blurred. I gasped for air, completely paralyzed by the sudden trauma to my shattered nerves. Vanessa stood over me, pointing a manicured finger at my face. "Get up. She commanded, "Drop the act. You are draining Mom dry. You are a con artist." Uncle Derek pulled out his phone, a sick grin spreading across his face as he hit record. "Let's get the miracle on tape," he sneered. Then the most horrifying thing happened. The family started to chant, "Stand up, stand up, stand up." 60 people. Aunts, cousin, people who used to buy me birthday presents, clapping in unison. Why do they do it? Why does an entire family turn on a disabled person? It took me years of therapy to understand the psychology behind that sickening chant. It is not just about money. It is about fear. If my family accepts that a completely healthy soldier can lose her mobility to a random, unpreventable tragedy, they have to accept that the world is chaotic. They have to accept that they are not safe. Victim blaming is a coward's defense mechanism. By deciding that I was faking, by deciding that I was a con artist who brought this upon herself, they restored order to their terrifying world. Making me a villain allowed them to feel safe. But I was not defenseless. I knew Vanessa was planning a public confrontation. I knew the family would back her. So, 2 hours before the barbecue, I had discreetly texted my spinal surgeon, Dr. Marcus Bennett. I invited him to drop by, hoping a medical professional could finally force them to understand reality. When Vanessa cornered me, I quietly speed dialed him from my pocket. He heard the screaming through the open line. He heard the skin tear. He pulled out his camera the exact second he walked through the gate, capturing the physical assault with premeditated precision. Dr. Bennett stepped through the crowd of silent, staring relatives. He did not yell. He did not lose his temper. He suffocated their arrogance with cold, clinical authority. He looked directly at Vanessa. "I performed the spinal fusion on this young woman," he said, his voice carrying across the yard. "I placed 12 screws into her shattered vertebrae. She has irreversible nerve damage. And I just recorded a registered nurse committing felony aggravated battery on a disabled veteran." The color instantly drained from Vanessa's face. The chanting stopped dead. Uncle Derek's hand began to shake violently. Realizing his own phone recording was now state evidence of a coordinated assault. "You are a medical professional." Dr. Bennett continued, stepping closer to my sister. "You know exactly what a sudden fall does to a compromised spine. I am sending this footage to the police, and I am sending it to the State Board of Nursing. My patient is leaving now." He gently righted my wheelchair, lifted me from the burning concrete, and rolled me out of that toxic yard. Nobody said a single word. The immediate fallout was brutal. Vanessa was arrested the following Tuesday. She pleaded guilty to aggravated battery to avoid jail time. The hospital fired her immediately. The state nursing board permanently revoked her license. She was placed on strict probation. Uncle Derek was hit with a massive civil lawsuit from my attorney for intentional infliction of emotional distress, forcing him to liquidate his leased cars and drain his savings to pay legal fees. For a brief moment, the dust settled. I thought the war was over. I was wrong. Toxic people do not learn from consequences. They only learn to change their tactics. Desperate, broke, and furious, Vanessa decided to strike back. She realized she could not attack me directly without violating her probation. So she went after the money. Knowing my mother was financially clueless, Vanessa filed an emergency, anonymous report with Adult Protective Services. She claimed that I was mentally unstable, that I was financially abusing our mother, and that the state needed to step in and force the sale of the house to protect Catherine's assets. Vanessa thought she was a genius. She used specific medical terminology about our mother's blood pressure medications to make the anonymous report sound highly credible. She assumed the state would freeze everything, forcing a liquidation where she could swoop in and claim her share. She underestimated me. The military teaches you to always anticipate the counterattack. Months before the barbecue, I used my veteran legal benefits to hire a specialized elder law attorney. I knew Vanessa was greedy, so I locked the estate down completely. We had already placed my mother's home and assets into an ironclad, irrevocable trust. We even had a state-certified psychiatrist conduct a full competency evaluation on my mother, documenting that she was of sound mind and acting voluntarily. When the state investigator arrived at my door to follow up on the anonymous abuse tip, I did not panic. I did not argue. I calmly rolled my chair to the dining table and slid a heavy, leather-bound legal binder across the wood. The investigator opened it, read the psychiatric clearances, read the trust documents, and closed the binder within 10 minutes. The case was immediately classified as unfounded, but my lawyer was not finished. Because the anonymous tipster used specific medical knowledge, my lawyer easily filed a subpoena for the location data of the burner phone used to make the call. The data pinged directly to Vanessa's new apartment. Vanessa had filed a fraudulent state report against the exact same victim of her violent felony. Retaliating against a victim while on probation is an immediate, unbailable violation. The legal system grinds slowly, but it grinds fine. It took 2 weeks of bureaucratic processing for the warrant to clear. During those 2 weeks, Vanessa thought she had gotten away with it. She managed to get hired at a local retail store, working minimum wage, trying to rebuild some semblance of a life. The police did not call her. They simply walked through the sliding glass doors of the retail store on a busy Saturday afternoon. They walked past the registers, past the confused customers, and approached Vanessa while she was folding clothes. They did not give her time to explain. They placed her in handcuffs in front of her manager and marched her out to the squad car. Her probation was revoked on the spot. She was sent straight to the state penitentiary to serve out her original sentence. Her fake compassion could not save her this time. The final loose end was my mother. Catherine had stood in the yard and watched her daughter get shoved onto concrete, and she had done absolutely nothing. Passivity in the face of abuse is just a quieter form of participation. A week after Vanessa's final arrest, Catherine showed up at my modified van. Her eyes were red. She knocked on the window, begging me to call the lawyers off Uncle Derek, begging me to find a way to get Vanessa out of prison. She looked at me, crying, saying we were still family. We just need to fix this. She pleaded. I looked at the woman who had birthed me, the woman who had watched the mob tear me down. I reached into my glove compartment and pulled out a single sheet of paper. I handed it to her through the cracked window. It was a signed legal transfer from my bank. I had taken the entirety of my military back pay and completely absorbed the $150,000 mortgage debt on her house. I paid it off in full. You do not owe me anything anymore. Mom, I said, my voice completely steady, and I do not owe you. I rolled the window up, put the van in drive, and pulled out of the driveway. I watched her shrink in the rearview mirror, standing completely alone in the street, holding the paper that officially confirmed she no longer had daughters. It has been 3 years since that afternoon. Vanessa is still sitting in a concrete cell. Uncle Derek filed for bankruptcy. Catherine lives in a massive, quiet house that no one ever visits. I moved across the country to a small, accessible cabin in the Pacific Northwest. I am surrounded by a chosen family of fellow veterans and advocates who treat my boundaries as absolute law. I sleep peacefully. I wake up without dread, and I have spent hundreds of hours staring out at the mountains, dissecting the anatomy of toxic families and the narcissists who run them. I want to share the 3 fundamental rules I learned from surviving the destruction of my own bloodline. Rule number 1: blood is a biological accident. Loyalty is a conscious choice. Society conditions us to believe that sharing DNA creates an unbreakable bond, a sacred contract that demands infinite forgiveness. This is a lie designed to keep victims trapped. If a stranger walked up to you at a barbecue, screamed in your face, and shoved you out of a wheelchair, you would press charges without hesitation. You would call the police. You would demand justice. So why do we lower our standards of respect for the people who are supposed to protect us? Families should be held to a higher standard of behavior, not a lower one. If their love requires you to endure abuse, it is not love. It is a hostage situation. Rule number 2: the most dangerous abusers always wear the armor of a good reputation. Vanessa weaponized her nursing career. She used her scrubs and her hospital badge as a smokescreen for her private cruelty. Toxic people are drawn to caring professions because it grants them immediate, unquestionable social status. They know that if they build a public image of selflessness, nobody will believe the victim who exposes their darkness behind closed doors. They use their public compassion to gaslight their targets. You must remember that a person's job title does not dictate their character. Do not let their public halo blind you to the pitchfork they are hiding behind their back. Documentación, hard evidence, and absolute reality are the only ways to pierce the armor of a covert narcissist. Rule number 3: true closure is a self-made construct. For 2 long years, I desperately wanted my family to understand my pain. I wanted them to validate my injury. I thought if I just explained it clearly enough, if I showed them the medical records, they would finally apologize and love me. I was wrong. Abusers do not misunderstand you. They willingly choose not to understand you because your truth threatens their narrative. You will never get the cinematic apology. You will never get the tearful confession where they admit they were wrong. And you do not need it. True peace does not come from convincing a toxic person to treat you with human decency. True peace comes from enforcing a boundary of steel, withdrawing your empathy, and walking away. You let the universe, the law, and their own terrible choices collect the debt. You do not lift a single finger to save them from the consequences of their own actions. You are allowed to cut the cord. You are allowed to mourn the family you deserved while permanently walking away from the family you got. Survival requires ruthless prioritization of your own soul. Have you ever kept a toxic person in your life just because you share a last name? What would happen if you finally stopped protecting them from the wreckage they create? Drop a 1 in the comments if you have ever had to enforce an iron boundary, and share this story with someone who needs the strength to walk away today. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are asking, why did she wait 2 years to expose them? And why on earth did she pay off a $150,000 mortgage for a mother who just stood there and watched her get abused? Take a breath. Let's break this down. Because what you just watched is a masterclass in survival. First, let's talk about the psychology of the delay. Why do smart people stay in toxic family dynamics for so long? It is not because they are weak. It is because of something psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. I call it the slot machine effect. Look, if a slot machine took your money every single time you pulled the lever, you would walk away immediately. But toxic families do not abuse you every single second. Occasionally, they give you a crumb of hope. A quiet afternoon, a birthday text, a mother helping to buy a wheelchair-accessible van. Those random, unpredictable payouts keep you pulling the lever, desperately hoping that this time you will hit the jackpot of unconditional love. Brooke was not addicted to the pain, she was addicted to the potential of a normal family. It takes a massive, undeniable shock, like being shoved onto concrete while 60 relatives cheer to finally unplug the machine. Now, let's look at the absolute genius of Brooke's financial and legal self-defense. She did not just react with her emotions, she reacted with a strategy. Number one, building the case. Brooke knew her family would gaslight her, so she did not rely on her own word. She brought a licensed spinal surgeon into the danger zone and kept an open phone line. Abusers thrive in the shadows of, he said. She said, when you drag them into the harsh light of professional documentation, their power evaporates. Number two, the armor strategy. When Vanessa tried to use adult protective services to force a house sale, she walked straight into a legal brick wall. Why? Because Brooke anticipated the greed. She had already hired a specialized elder law attorney, built an irrevocable trust, and secured psychiatric evaluations. She legally bulletproofed the assets months in advance. She did not wait for the attack. She built the fortress before the war even started. And finally, number three, the buyout. Paying off that $150,000 mortgage was not a gift to an enabling mother. It was a severance package. Brooke was buying her total, unarguable freedom. By absorbing that debt, she severed the last financial chain her mother could ever use to guilt trip or manipulate her. Sometimes the absolute best investment you will ever make is paying whatever it costs to get your peace of mind back. 3 years later, I still remember the sound of that gate opening. Not the laughter, not the chant, not even the pain tearing through my spine when my body hit the patio stones. I remember Dr. Bennett's voice. That is my patient. 5 words: calm, clinical, final. Those 5 words did what years of begging could not do. They forced my family to see me as a human being, not a burden, not a liar, not a problem they could mock until I disappeared. Vanessa lost everything she had built her identity around. Her license, her reputation, her polished image as the caring nurse everyone trusted. Uncle Derek lost his cars, his savings, and the smug little kingdom he built by laughing at people weaker than him. My mother kept her house, but lost the only thing money could not replace: access to me. And that was the part she never understood. She thought paying off the mortgage was forgiveness. It was not. It was the final severing. I paid that debt because I never wanted to hear her say, after everything I did for you, I never wanted her second mortgage to become a chain around my neck. I never wanted Vanessa, Derek, or any relative to claim I owed them silence because my mother once helped me survive. So I bought my freedom. $150,000 was not a gift. It was the price of never being owned by their guilt again. Now my life is quiet. My cabin has wide doorways, smooth floors, and a ramp that faces the trees. In the mornings, fog rolls over the mountains like a soft gray blanket. My chosen family visits with coffee, groceries, bad jokes, and no hidden agenda. Nobody asks me to prove my pain. Nobody demands I perform my disability for their comfort. Nobody turns my survival into a debate. For the first time, my body is allowed to simply exist. I used to think peace would feel like victory. Loud, dramatic. A final courtroom moment where everyone admitted they were wrong. But peace is smaller than that. Peace is sleeping without checking your phone. Peace is not flinching when a car pulls into the driveway. Peace is knowing that someone can hate you, lie about you, even share your blood, and still have no legal, emotional, or financial access to your life. That is the lesson I need you to carry from my story. Do not wait for cruel people to become kind before you protect yourself. Do not wait for relatives to understand your pain before you believe it. And do not mistake silence for weakness. Sometimes silence is strategy. Sometimes silence is evidence gathering. Sometimes silence is the calm before the gate opens and the truth walks in holding a camera. If someone in your family only loves you when you are useful, that is not love. If they call you dramatic for naming abuse, that is not concern. If they demand forgiveness before accountability, they are not asking for healing. They are asking for permission to hurt you again. Blood may explain how people are connected. It does not excuse what they do. So if you are the one being mocked, doubted, drained, or pushed aside while everyone protects the person hurting you, listen carefully. Document everything. Protect your money. Build your legal wall before the next attack. And when the moment comes, do not waste your breath trying to convince the mob. Let the evidence speak. Let the consequences arrive. Then roll away without looking back. Because survival is not just staying alive. Survival is reclaiming the right to be safe. Have you ever had to cut off someone who thought family meant unlimited access to your life? Drop your story in the comments. And if this hit home, share it with someone who needs to hear this today. Sometimes the people who call you weak are only powerful because you keep protecting them. Stop protecting them. Choose yourself. Here is the verdict. Toxic people view your boundaries as a challenge, but the law views them as a wall. You cannot negotiate with entitlement, but you can outsmart it. Stop trying to change a toxic person's heart and start protecting your assets and your sanity. What is the smartest move you have ever made to legally or financially cut a toxic person out of your life? Drop your story in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button for more real talk on surviving the people who are supposed to love you the most. Stay safe and stay smart.